Alright. Let's talk about some video games. As a pro gamer boy growing up, I always found it very annoying hearing news outlets and out-of-touch adults making the claim that video games are to blame for real-world violence. In my opinion, anyone who makes this claim has never played a video game before.
Pretty gory. You know them, you know, Call of Duty. I don't do any of these, but
like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, they're simulated violence.
It's a criminal simulator, a murder simulator.
It always made me frustrated listening to these news outlets talk about violence in video games and video games in general, and just never having any real good examples. Well, now that I think about it, maybe No Russian was a little overkill.
Snami-bo. Remember, no Russian.
Whenever someone does cause real-world violence, and the media figures out that he has a past to playing video games, they're most likely to roll with that story of them playing video games is the reason why they caused the violence.
Some of these other killers, Dylan Klebold, Eric Harris of Columbine, were steeped in these games, Adam Lanza.
The Norway killer trained on those. He said he trained on them. 69 dead on an island in Norway, and he spent a year training on video games to prepare himself for this crime. The killer in Florida, he spent 15 hours a day on violent video games. The most all-consuming, all-pervasive thing in this guy's life are these violent video games.
I mean, most of the time video games are to blame because a lot of these people just don't have any other explanation, so they just choose the easiest thing to blame on. I mean, if we go back to 1999, when the Columbine shootings happened, we could see some of the earliest examples of media blaming video games.
Considering video games under fire because of graphic violence and sexual themes. Violent video games the boys played before going on their real-life rampage.
I mean, sure, video games were thrown into the mix, but also Marilyn Manson was.
Some will be so brash to ask if we believe that all who hear Manson tomorrow night will go out and commit violent acts. The answer is no. But does everybody who watches a Lexus ad go and buy a Lexus? No, but a few do. If Marilyn Manson can walk into our town and promote hate, violence, suicide, death, drug use, and Columbine-like behavior, I can say, not without a fight you can't.
I think Marilyn is a great example to use when talking about this topic because he has been blamed for so many shootings that it's almost ridiculous. And I can see why, because he seems like such an easy target to choose.
Did you endorse mass shootings?
No, absolutely not.
So why you in Columbine?
Because I happen to have a song in The Matrix that just come out, and they're shooting, and I had a video on TV called Rock is Dead. The kids weren't even fans of me. I think they probably thought that I was too much of a sissy because I was wearing lipstick. I don't really know. I don't know what's going on with them.
Well, you must have got a bad rap for that.
Yeah, it kind of put my whole career on hold. A lot of people don't know about it because I had to really take an active stance legally against a lot of news places for using Marilyn Manson, which is trademarked, much like Mickey Mouse. It's not.
Did you sue people?
No, but I had to put a cease and desist order, so now people don't talk about it. So in some ways, I feel mad that, you know, other than Bowling for Columbine, which a lot of people at airports and things like that always say, oh, I didn't know you're so smart, what you said in Bowling for Columbine. And I always want to say, I didn't know you're so stupid, but I don't know you. But, you know, I just said the simplest thing of all.
Which is?
I just said nobody listened to him. If they would just listen to me. Michael Moore asked me what I would say, and I said I would just listen. That's probably
when Columbine happened, though, as soon as it happened, did you know you were going to be somehow involved?
Before they were showing anything, they said, a gang of kids wearing Marilyn Manson t-shirts shot up a school or something live on Fox, and I was saying, oh, this is why, you know. So now I think that I've been blamed for about 36 school shootings.
And even though I'm not a fan of Marilyn's music, he seems like a very well-spoken and intelligent person. Being able to see why these parents would choose him to blame for all these events happening.
Definitely can see why they would pick me, because I think it's easy to throw my face on a TV because I'm, in the end, sort of a poster boy for fear. because I represent what everyone's afraid of, because I do and say what I want.
Do you know that the day that Columbine happened, the United States dropped more bombs on Kosovo than any other time during that war?
I do know that, and I think that that's really ironic, you know, that nobody said, well, maybe the president had an influence on this violent behavior.
If you were to talk directly to the kids at Columbine or the people in that community, what would you say to them if they were here right now?
I wouldn't say a single word to them. I would listen to what they have to say, and that's what no one did.
I mean, when I was growing up, my parents never really concerned about me recreating the violence that I played in some of these video games. They were just worried that I would put video games over school, which I definitely did, because fuck school. And I was playing some violent video games when I was a little boy. I mean, I played Halo when I was 7 years old, and I remember just killing an elite and beating the shit out of the dead body until blood was spewing all over the screen until my TV got so laggy because of all of the blood. And I use that as an example because I never once thought of trying to beat up my classmate just to have the blood spew out everywhere, just like the elite in the video game. Not like I could beat anyone up though, but it really doesn't matter what I say about my own experience with video games or anyone else, because there will always be people blaming it. And of course, back in August, Trump made this statement.
Second, we must stop the glorification of violence in our society. This includes the gruesome and grisly video games that are now commonplace. It is too easy today for troubled youth to surround themselves with a culture that celebrates violence. We must stop or substantially reduce this, and it has to begin immediately.
I mean, just fuck me, dude, because hearing these people talk about video games just makes my little gamer tummy hurt. Even though I think these cases that these people make are dumb, it doesn't mean I don't see where they're coming from. Most, if not all of them, have never played a video game before, and when they're watching their son or daughter play GTA and become a one-man army, it's kind of hard for them to not realize, like, maybe they shouldn't be playing a game like this, which is totally fine. Take action. Tell your kids to not play the game. But if their kid decides to shoot up their own school, it's not because they picked up a copy of Call of Duty and said, hey, I want to do this in real life. Just as an example, watch this clip from a TED Talk from a person who almost became a school shooter.
In 1996, Denver, Colorado, as a student in North High, in a moment of pain and anger, I almost committed a terrible atrocity. Growing up, I learned early on there was a strange comfort and calmness in darkness. I was always the new kid. My family was very violent and aggressive, drug-addicted parents. We were moving from place to place a lot, went to 30 or 40 different schools, always seemed to be going to a new school every other week. You woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning by some cops to run across the country to get away from them and then end up at a school I'd only be at for a couple weeks and then have to do it all again a couple days later. So every time I went to a new school, I was in a whole new set of bullies. They'd do things like walk up to me and shoot me with a harpoon like I was a whale, or dunk food on my head because I said I was too fat. But the bullying wasn't just at home, or wasn't just at school. It happened at home a lot too. I was told I was worthless by just about everybody in my life. And when you're told you're worthless enough, you will believe it. Then you're going to do everything you can to make everybody else agree with it too. And so I did. I wrapped that darkness around me like a blanket and used it as a shield. It would keep the few that would agree with me close, but it kept everybody else away. I always had heard in life that there was good people and bad people. I must be one of the bad people, so I guess I would have to just do what I was supposed to do. The abuse just never seemed to stop. I got into cutting around 14 or 15 because I figured that there was all this extreme emotion going on in my life I had absolutely no control over. Had to find some way to find control over something, so I took to cutting myself. I still have the scars to this day, knowing that if I didn't do something, I was going to kill myself soon. So I did the only thing I could think of to do. Grabbed a phone book and I called social services. So when I went to social services, sadly, they didn't just bring me in there. They also took my mom in there too, who happened to be one of the largest sources of my pain growing up. And since she had spent her entire life running from place to place and dealing with social workers and police officers, she knew exactly what to say to get me to get them to believe that I was just making it all up. It was all just an act. I was just doing it for attention. And then they sent me home with her. And as they sent me home with her, she turned to me and she said, "Next time you should do a better job and I'll buy you the razor blades." I decided that my act of doing something was I was going to express my extreme anger and rage by getting a gun. I was going to attack either my school or a mall food court. Really didn't matter to me which one. It wasn't about the people. It was about the largest amount of damage in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of security. Both those places were ripe targets. If you see someone who's in that spot that needs that love, give it to them. Love the ones you feel deserve it the least because they need it the most. Instead of looking at that kid like he's a threat, look at him like he might be a friend. Look at him like you might be able to bring him into your fold. Show him that it's just a Tuesday. Show him that he's worth it. Show him that he can exist in this pain, even though it's intense, that at the end of it, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
Some of these school shootings happen because a lot of these kids just don't realize that school isn't forever. You know, you graduate at some point. And it's hard for them to realize this because there's so many years they have to go through of school and people bullying them. And I would know because I used to be one of those bully kids. And it really does seem like an eternity sometimes. I mean, I had a lot of friends when I was in elementary school because everyone was into what I was into, playing video games, going outside, and, you know, regular kid stuff. But then when you get to middle school and high school, everyone is into, you know, drugs, drinking, girls, and I was extremely overweight, so it's kind of hard to get a girl when your titties are bigger than some of the girls. And that's why I played so many video games, because it was a way for me to escape from the outside world and be able to get through a lot of those tough years of middle school and high school when I really didn't have anyone else to hang out with. I mean, I honestly don't even know what kind of person I'd be today without video games. Even though I played my fair share of violent video games, I never wanted to inflict any of that pain I played in those video games into the bullies at my school. I never really was that type of person. Video games, I never really saw video games in that way. Video games actually helped me get through the day at school because that's all I'd be thinking about. All I would think about is getting online, hopping on some Halo 3 Forge, and inviting some of my online buddies to build the next infection map. And it might be a little drastic to say this, but in my eyes, video games saved my life. I know in this video I talked about my experience with video games quite a bit, but you don't only have to take my word for it. I have also found a lot of studies that prove that video games do not cause violence and that video games actually help improve your brain and body. So maybe do something productive and rip up that homework and hop on a match of Halo.